Hello, everybody. I hope you are enjoying yourself as much as you can while we are all sheltering in place in our homes during this period of social distancing brought on by the COVID 19 coronavirus pandemic. I am here tonight to discuss some interesting developments in Muni related to the COVID 19 pandemic and how it is affecting everyday Muni ridership. Now, I'm not talking about the statistical uh, angle for the statistics, rather, I'm talking about how people are supposed to conduct themselves on board Muni. Muni issued this update on Twitter today. And what it means, what it entails, is that you are now required to board through the rear door of all buses. Now, for those of you who know your Muni history well, up until July 1st, 2012, if you were riding a Muni bus, you were required to board through the front door, pay your fare, show the driver your paper fast pass, this was before Clipper cards, and head on back to the bus as far as you could go, find a seat if you were able, and leave the front seats to be reserved for seniors, people with disabilities, pregnant women, and others who may need special access to the doors, including wheelchairs. So it's interesting now that 8 years after all door boarding was instituted on buses, not only are you allowed to board through the back door, but you're also required to board through the back door. Now that's interesting because what if you have to pay your fare? Well, all Muni drivers now, in order to avoid physical and bacterial contact with other passengers, even just in the vicinity of their drivers' cabins, are now not only required by Muni to keep their drivers' cabins closed with the plastic window, Dutch door style compartment, but they're also required to keep the front doors closed unless you are a passenger who really needs access to the front doors for physical disability reasons, such as being in a wheelchair. So here's a little bit of history with passengers being only able to board through the back door. Well, the first Muni form of proof of payment was in August of 1998 when the N-Judah was extended from the Embarcadero Station to the Caltrain Depot at 4th and Townsend, and it became the first Muni Metro light rail route to be fully converted to the Breda light rail vehicles. Now, the Breda light rail vehicles were Muni's first LRV to have 4 doors operable for passenger boarding. Right there. So there's a photo of a Breda LRV pulling up to the station. You can see all 4 doors line evenly at the platform. Therefore, passengers are able to board through all 4 doors at the platform because they all open up and close in unison. But what's interesting is that before the Breda LRVs, we had the Boeing LRVs. The Boeing LRVs were essentially the pioneering LRV for the Muni Metro underground, and they were reeked with problems and were not very popular among Muni personnel and riders. So after 21 years of operation, they got scrapped, and some have been preserved. But the Boeing LRVs, prior to the implications of the COVID 19 pandemic, were the only Muni vehicle in which you, at one point, had to actually board through the rear door only. This was underground. Here's a video of a Boeing LRV train, 2 cars, pulling in to Castro Station in 1996. Now check this out. There it goes, pulling into the station. The rear doors of each car open, but the front doors don't. The reason for this is because the front doors, unlike the two rear doors, could not open underground due to the fact that their stairs stayed down. They did not raise up like the two sets of rear doors. And the Boeings also had 3 doors on each side instead of 4. So in that way, the Brettas beat them, as well as the Brettas being air conditioned and the Boeings not, even though you could open windows here to let air in. But as you can see, the front doors of the Boeing cars were curved. They could not line up evenly or safely at the platform's edge like the rear doors could. So even though the doors could mechanically open underground, the driver would just simply pull the right switch at their control pad. Once the doors opened underground, passengers could not safely step into the train. A, because the stairs were down, so it'd be like walking into a manhole on a sidewalk. But B, because even if the stairs were able to raise up, the curvature of the front doors would not have lined up evenly with the platform. And therefore passengers could either trip, or there would be too wide a gap between the platform edge and the front door entrance to the Boeings. So, for safety reasons, Muni elected not to configure the Boeing light rail vehicles with raisable stairs, and underground, you had only 2 doors to board through instead of 3. So you were required to board through the rear door. So between 2002, when the Boeings were officially retired, and 2020, that's an 18-year period, people are now, based on COVID-19, required to board through the rear door of buses. Now, underground is currently non-existent. All of it has been shut down. There are no light rail vehicles currently in operation, above ground or below ground. You have to take buses. So if you are boarding a standard 40-foot bus like this New Flyer XDE 40, you are required to board through the rear door, not the front door as well. And here's something that's interesting to think about chronologically as well. Not only were the New Flyer XDE 40s and the New Flyer XDE 60s and the New Flyer XT 40s and the New Flyer XT 60s the first fleets in Muni to arrive after its all-door boarding policy was instituted. So these are the first Muni vehicles never to have seen the light of day prior to all-door boarding on July 1st, 2012. But what's interesting is that, the point of all-door boarding was so that passengers who had their proof of payment with them in the form of a Clipper card, a ticket like that's in the shape of this Muni alert here, looks just like this when you buy it from a machine, or a transfer issued by the electronic fare box by the driver's cabin. If you had all those, you had already paid, so you wouldn't need to go through the front door to show the driver your proof of payment. You could tag your Clipper card at the back, or hold up your pass if it was a Lifeline L pass for low-income riders. Or if you really wanted to be sneaky, you could go through the back door without paying, but then you might have to confront the proof of payment police in the event that they boarded and were checking proof of payment. You don't pay your fare, you gotta pay $100+. Doesn't sound too good. So now, with all Muni passengers being required to board through the same door in single file fashion, whether or not you have proof of payment, not only does that defeat the purpose of all-door boarding speeding, but now let's say that there were as few as 2 passengers at this bus stop here. I know this is right at the corner of Fremont and Market. If one passenger was here and the other was here at either door, they could board in half the time. But now both of them would have to board through the rear door, so it takes twice as long. Again, even if it's just a 1 passenger difference, a 1 door elimination makes all the difference. So there's some mathematical terminology for you there in terms of subtraction. So what I'd like to do now is engage some Muni Math social distancing exercises with you. Now, when you're on board Muni, you are required to maintain a 6-foot social distance from your fellow passengers and the enclosed Muni operator. Sounds simple enough, but even in these days when people are staying home and not going out and about on Muni, which by the way is encouraging its passengers to not ride Muni except for the absolute essentials. So it's already struggling financially. Looks like it's going to continue to do in that light. Oh well. But anyway, in terms of social distancing, every bus and light rail vehicle, when it was in operation, has a different number of seats. Sorry for the shaky camera, by the way. Some of the seats are, some of the buses that are the same size from the same manufacturer have different numbers of seats based on what batch they're from. So if they're a New Flyer XDE40, they could have a certain number of seats if they were from the 8600 series, the 8700 series, the 8800 series, or the 8900 series. Every fleet has a different seat configuration in its interior. And interestingly enough, the Boeing LRVs were the same way. They had a yellow interior with 66 seats, and they had a brown interior with 50 seats. The brown interior Boeings came from Boston because they were rejected by its light rail vehicle metro subway system. And then the 1200 series, which were the yellow cars, the 1300 series were the brown cars, the 1200 series cars were built especially for Muni, and they were brighter inside as well. All right, so let's do some Muni math with regards to social distancing. Here is a seat on a bus. It's approximately 3 to 4 feet wide, and I say that because without revealing any personal details, I know for a fact that my waistband is between that. So if you have a single seat like this, or a pair of seats like this, a trio of seats like that, a quartet of seats like that, or a quintet of seats like that, if you're required to maintain a 6-foot radius social distance between you and your fellow passengers, and if each of these seats is approximately 3 feet wide, how many seats will there need to be between you to maintain that safe social distance? And that, of course, also includes seats that are aligned in bleacher style. You know, these are the same size seats, but if they're front and back as opposed to side, does that make any difference in terms of subtraction or otherwise? Well, that's up to you to figure out. If you have any ideas, please feel free to leave them in the comments of this video. But we are entering a new, hopefully temporary era for Muni based on the social distancing factors. But it is intriguing to see how it's almost a form of history repeating itself. So good luck to everyone. I'm thinking of all of you. I hope that, again, life is treating you well despite this current situation. If you are able to ride Muni for the essentials, keep at it. I'll be out there too. Stay safe. Wash your hands, especially after you get off Muni. That's a standard protocol. And enjoy this video. All right, take good care. And talk to you later. Good night.